Chapter 9 of the Boy Scouts on Sturgeon Island. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Kenneth Sergeant Gaghan. The Boy Scouts on Sturgeon Island by Herbert Carter. Chapter 9. Be Prepared. Bumpus was not the only fellow who felt his heart beating much faster than it should, though none of the others betrayed the fact, for Stephen and Giraffe were too crafty to show that they were worried. They seemed to be in a trap, but the heavy seas would not allow them to think of leaving their anchorage until morning came along, and to remain might be and expose themselves to some unknown peril. But then these lads had been through so many things, especially since they joined the Cranford troop of Boy Scouts, and learned what it meant to think for themselves. None of them really displayed the white feather, no matter if Bumpus, who loved peace so much that he sometimes fought to secure it, did manifest some uneasiness. They had along with him a double-barreled shotgun that had always given a good account of itself, even in past times, and would again if called to show its sterling qualities. And with this in hands of Thad Brewster, who was a perfectly fearless chap according to his turns, did not know that his boy heart could hammer in his breast like a runaway steam engine. Why, they surely ought to be able to stave off any ordinary attack. Giraffe felt better when he had picked up the camp hatchet and waved it several times in the air, making vicious stabs at an imaginary enemy. "Get ready for boarders, fellows," remarked Stephen, who had reached in and secured the long bread knife, which would make a most formidable weapon, if only he had the nerve to wield the same. "Not on your life," snapped Giraffe. "We got enough mouths to feed as it is, without taking on any more. Boarders nothing. You got another thing to think about coming, Stephen, don't you see?" "But after all, fellows," Thad told his fellows, "this may be a false alarm. That light has gone out now. It may only have been some farmer or miner letting his wife know he was on the way home. How do we know any different? And what interest would any rascals have in trying to come aboard this boat?" "That sounds very fine, Thad," remarked Davy. "But we hope we ain't thinking of all going to sleep at once tonight." "We'd have some sentry on duty all the time," suggested Giraffe. "Then I appoint you for that onerous duty, then, Giraffe. Consider that settled," the scoutmaster said, like a flash, whereupon the tall chap began to hedge and explain more fully his views. "Why, of course I didn't mean that one scout should sit up all night," he went on to remark. "But by taking turns, we'd feel that the boat wasn't going to be carried off while we slept. Sure, I'm willing to stand my turn, which might be any 2 hours you said. And then I'll wake up the next man. You know we've done that so many times when we were in Maine, down along the Blue Ridge, and out among the Rockies hunting big game." "Of course I understand what you meant, Giraffe," the scoutmaster went on to remark. "And as you say, some of us will spell you. A new man going on duty every 2 hours. But I hope nobody really believes that we're going to be attacked by lake pirates or smugglers, or anything like that. Those who lie down to sleep just forget about everything. We're safe here in a splendid harbor, and nothing will bother us." "But if we should, Thad, you'll wake us all up, I hope," urged Bumpus. "I promise you that," Bumpus returned Thad, "because I know just how you feel about it. No fellow likes to be kicked while he's asleep, with his eyes open and a way to take care of himself. Oh, yes, we'll see that everyone is waked up. There's going to be a row, because we'll have to need your fighting face then," Bumpus remembered. It's hard to get the fat boy fully aroused, such was his customary good nature. But when he did get beyond the limit, he used to assume what he considered a terrible look that was supposed to strike fear into the heart of his adversary. Somehow, no one admitted to feeling all sleepy now. Even Bumpus, who as a rule could be depended on to fall asleep right after he had his supper, was apparently as wide awake as a hawk, and joined in all the conversation as he sat around the deck, and waiting for, they hardly knew what, to happen. "Anyhow, we didn't tie up the shore, as Bumpus wanted when he said he'd feel so much better if he could walk on firm ground again," remarked Stephen. "And I'm glad now that the 20 feet or more of water lies between us and the shore," the party mentioned hastened to add. "How deep do you think it is in here, Thad?" questioned Davy. "Oh, all of 20 feet in the place our anchor went down," replied the skipper, promptly. "It's a regular hole, such as the trout like to lie in during the hot dog days of late summer." "Glad to hear you say that," observed Bumpus. But he did not explain whether his pleasure lay in the fact that any would-be boarders might find it difficult to cross over from the rocks to the boat, or that there were likely to be fish in the pool, affording a chance for a nibble at the tempting bait he had dropped overboard, attached to the concealed hook at the end of his line. If anybody came along here just on purpose to take a good look at us, whereabouts do you think they'd likely to show up? First of all, Thad, Stephen wanted to know. I was thinking about that a minute ago, Stephen, replied the scoutmaster, and sort of made up my mind they'd be apt to climb that pile of rocks yonder. You see, it overlooks this pool, and a man might lie there near the top and watch us all he wanted, provided the moon came out and gave him the light he needed. Everybody thereupon cast an eye aloft. I'm afraid that moon business is just what's going to happen right now, observed Giraffe. Yes, there isn't going to be a storm after all, remarked the skipper. Clouds are breaking right now, and it was a false alarm, you see. Well, hardly with me, ventured Bumpus. Whereupon, everybody tithered, because they knew what the fat scout meant. And there were 3 others who, if they were as candid as Bumpus, might have added, "Me too." Half an hour passed by, and they were really getting tired, for it was now the neighborhood of 10:30. As Thad told them the last time he consulted his little watch, they gave him so much satisfaction in all his outings. Still, none of them wanted to be the fellow to first crawl under his blanket, it being only a matter of pride that kept Bumpus at least on deck, blinking like an owl in the daytime as he tried to keep his eyes open. Jim, the owl, by the way, had been fastened to a cleat and was perched on the edge of the cabin roof. No one as yet dared touch him, though he had eaten some meat they placed within his reach, which proved that the owl did not mean to starve himself to death, yet a while at least. All at once, Bumpus felt a galvanic shock. "Oh!" he shouted in excitement. "It's come at last!" All the others started up in great alarm. "What ails the fellow?" cried Stephen. "Got a fit, I reckon," echoed Giraffe. "Fit nothing," mocked the scout, who was bending over and seemed to be clawing wildly at the air, so that it was no wonder in the darkness they thought he must be having a return engagement with that seasickness. "I got a fish, and that's more'n you can claim, Giraffe, with all your smartness." "Bah! Never count your chickens till they're hatched," scoffed the other, as he saw the fat scout suddenly pause, as though there had come a slackening in the line. "Imagination's a great thing, maybe, but next time be sure of your game before you whoop it up so." "But he's there yet, I tell you," ejaculated Bumpus, again becoming active. "Hi, somebody, lend me a hand here so I won't lose him. We need this trout in our business because we got to have breakfast in the morning." "Hold on," said Giraffe with emphasis. "Don't forget that terms of our wager state distinctly that nobody must offer the slightest assistance in landing a fish. If you're after that fish solely for breakfast, why, any of us will be glad to lend you a hand. But then it don't count. How about that, Thad?" "Oh, you're correct, Giraffe," replied the other. "But I hope Bumpus lands his prize all right, because fresh fish would taste fine tomorrow morning." There was a little struggle in the mind of Giraffe as whether the sportsman's spirit or the love of good feeding would prevail. But at last he cried out, "I hope he gets it too. Sure I do. Good for you, Giraffe," exclaimed Thad, perhaps purposely making this for a spirit of fairness that would do the tall scout credit as a true sportsman. Meanwhile, all the much Bumpus tugging at his line. The fish was full of fight, and evidently objected to furnishing a breakfast for a party of Boy Scouts off on a vacation cruise. But by sheer strength and not a little good luck in the bargain rather than fisherman's skill, Bumpus finally managed to haul his struggling prize aboard. "It's a trout, sure as pop!" exclaimed Stephen, as they all bent over the wiggling and flapping captive, and Giraffe struck a match, the better to see its nature. Let me tell you, you pulled to the beat of the band too," Brad Angler vowed as he rubbed his arms, and then bent lower to admire the spotted sides of the big trout that probably looked prettier to Bumpus than anything he had ever seen before. "Oh, he's a chim dandy, and that's a fact, Bumpus," said Giraffe, swallowing his bit of chagrin because fortune had cheated him out of being the first in the contest to bring such a prize. At the same time, he was no doubt thinking what a tasty morsel that splendid fish would afford the lot for breakfast, and wondering if there were not several of them who had confessed that they did not care for fish which would allow larger portions to those who did. However, all the thoughts of this nature were doomed to be forgotten, because just then Davy had to go and throw a bombshell into the camp by remarking in a low and trembling voice, Thad. Oh, Thad. I saw a fellow poke his head up above that pile of rocks just then. Give you my word of honor I did. Be prepared, said the skipper quickly, and every scout reached out for the weapon he had decided to rally upon in case of dire necessity. End of Chapter 9. Recording by Kenneth Sergeant Gaghan.